Good morning. Every week I try to work on one skill, like an actual skill. And this week I'm trying to be a better listener. So that means for at least 5 days out of a week, I hope that I have an encounter where I can practice the skill. And then at the end of the week, you just sort of see if it worked for you, if you learned anything, if it would change anything about how you interact with people. And for me, it's just like a fun way to go through my day. So some helpful tips that I found on the internet is that you're telling yourself that you are shifting from responding to receiving. So it's a shift in mindset where when we talk to people and they're telling us something interesting, I have to view that, as I am about to receive some interesting information, not necessarily that I need to give input at all. Because the practice that I'm trying to do is to do better listening. And then another thing was talking about mental pace, which was really interesting because it says that people speak at about 125 words per minute on average, and the mind processes our own thoughts at over 500 words per minute. So it's almost like when you're listening to someone, it's almost slow motion compared to your own thoughts. But they said something can be helpful is to find an anchor, whether it's like the texture of a person's voice or expressions they make, and to always anchor yourself onto something about them when they're speaking. And this relates to the next part, which is about training your attention, which is about the thing that we all kind of do, which is our mind kind of drifts away or we start thinking about our own responses instead of listening. So being able to just being aware that it's happening. It's said in a I kind of like skills where you're adding something in versus like doing something versus not doing something because it's just hard for my brain to not do something. It's easier for my brain to replace it with doing something. So instead of like, I'm not going to drift out of this conversation, instead of that, you find little cues that you've trained yourself to be interested in hearing. So whenever you hear a word that has to do with feeling like sadness, I'm tired, that made me really happy, then your brain gets a little spark and you train yourself to be interested in those words when someone else is speaking. This is kind of like closed loop conversation to ask a follow up question. The follow up questions that I found were kind of boring and generic and sound like you're speaking to your therapist. Um, which I think when we talk to our friends or just people we meet and encounter on a daily basis, I feel like it's better not to be their therapist. I feel like it's better just to be. I mean, it's great if you can be a good listener. Like that's good enough. Um, so some of the suggestions for follow-ups are like, how did that make you feel? What happened after that? But the main thing about a follow-up is you I don't know if I regurgitate stuff that I heard, but I think that if there is genuinely something interesting that was said, I will ask about it. But it has to be genuinely interesting to me. And I think if you do the first portion better, it's easier to do the second portion because you actually heard or picked up on something that you didn't know before. Even with complete strangers, um, like people will start talking to me at the gas station when you're sort of like by yourself. Um, and it's really interesting because people tend to do these like very like one sentence, two sentence conversations. But if you've ever extended it past a kind of generic, all right, have a nice day, and further asked even just one question based on just one sentence that they gave you, just be careful because it can launch into a pretty long conversation. And then on the flip side, you have to be good at exiting a conversation. Um, and all of this stuff I've found when I do it, um, it gets easier. It definitely gets easier. Um, I like that I think it's important for people to feel listened to. And I think that people do walk away more with the feeling you gave them versus just like information you could have given them. So if that's something that matters to you or it's like a skill you want to develop so that for certain people in your life you can give them that great feeling of really being heard, then try it out and I'll try it out and you can let me know if it was helpful at all and any other suggestions that you want to, any other suggestions for skills we could all work on together. All right, have a good week.